So where did Dapper start?
So I was born and raised in Las Vegas and went to Clark High School and barely graduated. And I never had aspirations of going to college because it just wasn't just wasn't a great student.
Yeah.
And so I had like every job under the sun. You know, I worked at like Ruth Chris Steakhouse as a busboy.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other strip restaurants. And then my last, like, we'll say real job was at Alamo Rent-A-Car.
Oh, wow.
And I was a rental agent. And when I was probably about 18, 18 years old, I got my real estate license.
Oh, no way. That's pretty young.
Yeah, so when I got my real estate license, I started to do residential real estate and quickly started to do pretty well with it and made some money. But also I realized that I didn't really love residential real estate because it was like a super emotional business. You know, people would like go look at a house and they wouldn't like the color of the wall or, you know, something like that. And so I was really fortunate that, you know, at probably like 20 years old or 21 years old, I had a good client of mine that called me up and he said, my uncle's coming to town and he wants to buy a shopping center. Do you know anything about that? And I'm like, yeah, send him my way.
I'll figure it out.
And didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But the guy came to town and I ended up showing him a bunch of commercial shopping centers that were for sale. And he put one of them in escrow that was like $3.5 million.
Oh, dude.
And so I was counting my commission and thinking to myself, I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
And ultimately he didn't buy it.
Oh, no.
But what it did is it kind of introduced me to commercial real estate.
Just the idea of it.
Yeah, and just what it was. And I really liked and respected the reason that he didn't buy it was very black and white. You know, it was like more, it wasn't like the walls were blue. You know, it was like more like, hey, there's a business decision to be made here and there's a reason why I'm not buying it. And I really liked that. And so I immediately decided, okay, I'm going to go into this commercial real estate thing. And then very shortly after that, I decided, okay, I'm going to put together a little partnership and I'm going to buy my first shopping center. And
how old were you when you came to that conclusion?
Probably like 22.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, by 23, I put together this little investment group with my mom, an investment banker buddy of mine named Bill Zern, another friend of mine that was a doctor named Steve, and myself. So there was the four of us, and we went out and we bought this little shopping center up on St. Rose and Eastern in front of the Lowe's.
Okay.
And you know, after I purchased it, you know, I had this huge sense of accomplishment that I owned this shopping center, and I was this like young guy.
Yeah.
But I also realized that the guy that I bought it from had, you know, bought the land, built the building, put the tenants in place,
Like developed it and everything.
Yeah. And he sold it to me and probably made $1 million.
Yeah.
And so once I figured that out, that, you know, it was really cool that I owned this, you know, little shopping center, I started to think to myself, well, I could do this. I could buy this piece of land and build this building and put the tenants in place. And so that led me to like the very next year going out and doing that. So I bought, you know, my first property. And
just like raw land?
It was raw land. Yeah, I was at a corner of Gibson and Marycrest in Henderson. And I built a 7-Eleven, a Hertz Rent-A-Car, and a Heidi's Brooklyn Deli.
No way. But were they those entities, like you sold those spots before you developed it, or you developed it and then sold them?
So I bought the land, designed the building, and then got 7-Eleven to agree to a lease. And started to build it, and then as the building was going up, the other two tenants, Hertz and the Heidi's Brooklyn Deli, all fell into place.
Oh, nice.
So
and again, that was only a year later, so you're 23, 24?
Yeah, so I was like 24 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And then I just fell in love with, you know, construction and development, and loved the challenge of it. And then, you know, I went from, you know, building a small project to a slightly bigger project. And then as time went on, you know, I started doing things that were a little bit more complex. And eventually, you know, I got into doing a lot of development in downtown Las Vegas, where I've got a lot of projects. And I really enjoy, it's called adaptive reuse, when you buy like an old building and you make it new.
That's kind of what you did here, yeah?
That's what I did here.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy that. It's nice to take something that, is like underutilized and something that maybe somebody hasn't given any love to for a long time.
Right.
And then reactivate it, and it's cool to be able to walk around and see people doing business and having office space, or creating content, or having a photography studio, or whatever it is they do. It's pretty. It's
like bringing new life into it.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
So, like, did you have to get your contractor's license, or did you partner? Like, how did that even come? Because that seems like a big undertaking, yeah. And what was it in your mind that, like, we're like, I could do this? Where someone might look at it and be like, that seems impossible. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, so initially I didn't have my general contracting license. So I was just a developer, and I would hire a GC to go build things for me.
Yeah.
And eventually I got my general contracting license. So now I do both. I develop and build.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes people think that's the same thing.
It's not, right?
But it's totally separate. In fact, most developers are not general contractors.
Oh, I see. So they're just putting the pieces together. So they hire the contractor,
Yep.
buy the land, or not even buy the land maybe? And
Yeah,
just
no,
kinda...
they buy the land.
Oh, okay.
And, hire an architect, and then get permits, entitlements, then permits, and then hire a general contractor, and then the general contractor builds it. That's usually how it works.
I see. So now do you have all that in-house under your kind of own umbrella?
Yeah, so we have that all in-house, and we do pretty much everything, like from the start to the finish. So we don't self-perform things, so like we still hire subcontractors to do things for us. But, from property management to drafting and architecture, we have that in-house. We have permit coordinators and people like that, and so we do pretty much everything.
Wow, that's wild. So back to the question in regards to what was it in your mind that was like, I could do this? Did you ever have any doubt or insecurity, especially as a young man, undertaking such a kind of massive project?
So I grew up in, my parents got divorced when I was pretty young. And I was really close to both of them, but I had this mom that had this, really, she taught me, never take no for an answer, trust but verify everything, and, this attitude that you can kind of do anything you want if you set your mind to it. And I don't know exactly when that, became something that, I really believed in.
Yeah.
It was probably in my, late teens, early 20s. But I remember getting to the point where, I would find out about how something worked, and then, just because it was how everybody else was doing it, it didn't mean that's how you do it.
Right.
You question it and go, is this the right way to do it or the best way to do it? And then eventually you get to the point where you go, oh, I figured out a better way. And I just experienced a lot of people saying, oh, you can't do that. That's not possible. Or, you shouldn't do it that way. This is how everybody does it.
Right.
And then I got to this thing where I kind of enjoyed that challenge. I enjoyed somebody saying, hey, you can't do this.
Right.
And then saying, watch, I'll get it done.
Yeah.
And so when I adopted that kind of mantra, or, just always saying anything's possible, I can always get a yes, I can always make something happen. You put enough, hard work and determination into something, and if you just always, look for a different way, when you hit a roadblock, you find the next way, and eventually you'll get through. And when I kind of figured that out, it's when I started to, find success, because I never took no for an answer. And so in development is nothing but a different
overcoming challenges
every day. There's a problem, there's an issue,
right.
Whatever it is. And if you're not a problem solver and you don't have that attitude, it's a really hard business to be in.
Yeah, right. It could, I guess, what's the word? It just prevents a lot of people, right, from doing that line of business, which again is why it seems so crazy as such a young man to even just be I'm doing this, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So what kind of excites you nowadays? What's you've developed. I don't want to quote it, but a real estate empire. What's kind of you've done everything, it seems under the moon. What's something that is like an exciting project for you or something that you can, I don't know,
Yeah.
gets you stimulated these days?
So, I mean, over time things change and, your priorities change. I mean, I have a family now, and I've got like young kids at home. And so now, I'm pretty focused on like a better work-life balance. And, it's really easy to like, when you start off and you don't have a wife and you don't have kids,
Right.
to work 15 hours a day and
Right.
just like every Saturday, every Sunday, and just go.
Right.
And that's good. But then, like I've had some mentors, throughout the years that have told me how important it is to have good work-life balance. Make sure that you take care of all your relationships, not only, your work relationships, but also your relationships at home.
Right.
And so, what gets me excited today is like I'm striving now to have that better work-life balance and be able to still execute at a really high level at work, enjoy what I do, but then also, like spend the time that I need, like, with my kids and with my wife and then also with myself, like spending a little more time doing things I like to do, which typically in the past I haven't done because all I do is just work.
Yeah. Has it been like a challenge to pivot, like to kind of like even discover a hobby or something, right? Because like all you do is work. Like people ask me what I do and it's like work and I enjoy what I do. So I don't know. I don't like fly kites or anything,
Yeah.
So did you find it difficult to kind of find something to...
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like there's a few things that I love and I don't really have a chance or an opportunity to do it as much as I'd like. And as things like right now I'm still like going, a million miles a minute, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see where I'm going to get to a little bit of a slowdown, which will be really nice.
Yeah.
And, I've got kind of that list of things that I want to do more of. But like I would say that, the top of my list is like right now I miss a bunch of things that my kids get to do. You know, like school events. My wife goes to every one.
Right.
And I go to every, 10th one.
Yeah.
And
how old are your kids?
So I've got a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Oh, dude, you got 3 kids?
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old, so kind of close to the 4-year-old.
There you go. And so, I mean, you know how it goes. And listen, it goes really fast. People tell you that all the time,
right?
Like how fast things go.
Yeah.
But then in real life, when it actually happens,
you're like, dude,
it happens unbelievably fast. So, yeah, like I strive today to like find that really good balance because I do know a lot of people who are, I'll say, older, like on the kind of the other end of the spectrum, and they've got like amazing careers. They've made tons of money, but that's all they have to show for it.
Right.
And I know for a fact that I don't want to be one of those guys that missed out on all these amazing things that go by pretty fast.
Yeah.
So, and then from a work perspective, if I was going to say like what excites me and what I want to do more of, it would be projects like this. I really like buying old buildings in downtown Las Vegas, and I've got a historic theater called the Huntridge Theater. It was built in 1944, and it's on the National Historic Register.
Nice.
And it's this building that if you've lived in Vegas a long time, you know it, and you love it. It's been kind of unactivated and not open for over 20 years. And there's a big, long story behind, why that happened and how it happened. But I was able to acquire it a couple of years ago, and I've been working through plans to renovate it.
Nice.
I've got this really amazing tenant from New York called the Soho Playhouse that's going to go in and operate the theater.
Awesome.
And then I've got 2 amazing food and beverage restaurants that are going to go right next to it.
Cool.
And so being able to take something that's, like 80 years old.
Right.
And renovate it and bring it back to life is, I would say that's my passion at work.
Nice. So, and that's interesting because it's like everything you've described it's more like bringing life into something, recreating, reimagining, and allowing people to enjoy the kind of, it's almost like an art form. Never once, it's like, obviously I imagine all the projects, you're a successful business person, it's always going to be work pencil out, right? And you're going to benefit from it.
You hope.
You hope, right? Like,
You hope.
I mean, but that's awesome hearing from you. It's like, it's almost like an art form to you. It's like you're creating this place where people enjoy and, you know, prosper and thrive and like love the environment. So that's really, really interesting to hear from like a developer, right? Like I don't think I would personally imagine like that's
Have that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that probably the most rewarding thing that I get to do is, so when I go to, let's say, a place like this, and I see your business, it's here, it's thriving, or I go to a restaurant, you know, and I see like all the people that are working in the restaurant, and I think to myself, I used to be that guy, you know, bussing that table. And today, you know, I created this shopping center where this business went in, and this guy owns a business, and then he gives these jobs to all these people that work there.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievably rewarding because, you know, I think to myself, if I didn't do this,
right,
it'd be a piece of dirt, or it'd be an empty building.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that that's like the number one thing that, you know, when I say like gets me out of bed, makes me happy, is when I get to see that actually happening in real life. There's nothing more fulfilling than to be able to see other people be really successful.
Yeah, dude, that's wild to like the vantage point, because like you're saying, it's like how much economy and how much commerce is created, and those people take care of their families, and then their kids get to go to school and have clothes and food, and like, you know, that's wild that like how much, like how deep that vision goes, like how much of an impact you have from just doing your passion, you know? That's
it's development really is a business that has, like, when you say it goes deep, when you think about, you know, the first step is, you know, when you build something. So like you go out and you hire an architect and a civil engineer and a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer.
And these are all subcontractors?
Yeah, these are all people that, you know, start the project off, right? And then after you know, hire all those people and you draw a set of plans, then you turn that into the city, and there's people that work down at the city that get to check your plans, right? And, you know, I mean, they're going to have a job no matter what because they work for the city. Right. But, you know, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's possible for them to get laid off if there's no development going on.
Right.
And then after you get your plans and you have a permit, then you're going to go out and you're going to hire an electrician, a plumber, a drywall guy, an HVAC guy, a concrete guy, you know, a painter. And you get all these people that, you know, for this little period of time while you're building out this space or this shopping center, you're giving them work.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a vital part of our economy. Is like, you look at, I mean, there's so many people that are in the construction trade.
Yeah.
And then after it's done, then that business moves in.
Right.
And that guy opens up that restaurant, and, you know, all of a sudden he's got, you know, waiters and waitresses and bartenders and cooks and, you know, dishwashers.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's pretty, it makes you feel good that, you know, you create this thing, and it really, it's not about like making the money on it. It's more about, you know, having this business that creates other businesses.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. So let's pivot a little bit. Like, if you, from your vantage point now and like everything you've done and, you know, over the years, if you had to give your 24-year-old self going into development any advice, what would you kind of tell him?
You know, I'd probably, gotta think about that. There's probably a lot of advice.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest advice that I would probably give myself would be keeping, which I always do, but like keeping a very open mind and having a willingness to say yes to things. If you get into this mindset where, you know, you already know the answer to something and you don't open yourself up to like what's the possibility, it closes you off. And, you know, you'll meet a lot of people that are in any given industry and they'll be like, oh, I already know what that's all about. Right. And they kind of have that answer because they like know everything. And I like to be like, I like to learn every day now and more than I did back then. Like, I kind of thought I knew everything. And so I almost like, I enjoy being wrong about things, because if I'm wrong about something, that means I'm learning something new.
Right.
And so I would say that, you know, to have a more open mind, you know, a willingness to be wrong, and then also be able to pivot and be like, okay, I'm not doing this right, but I can make this little tweak and you know, be more successful.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is like the most expanded like people, like just mind, success, whatever, aren't like how much, look how smart I am, look what I know. Most of them are like, how much don't I know? It's like, what, I don't even know what I don't know. Like, what can I learn? And so that's interesting that you're saying that, like, to your younger self. It's like, hey, like, you actually don't know anything. Like, be more expanded and be open to receive, because you don't even know. Like me, I'm on a lifelong mission, and I'm still young, but like, I don't know what I don't know, right? And so I'm always trying to absorb. That's why I value conversations like this so much, because I don't even know what I don't know. But I'm sure like a plethora, just infinite amount of information that I don't know. And that's kind of the same with every human, right? There's every person that you encounter kind of probably knows something that you don't know based off like the way they grew up and they developed themselves. And so it's always important, I think, to keep an open mind and see what you could learn from the day, right? And
Absolutely.
You'll always be in a better position if you think that way, opposed to like, oh, I know this. Because then your teachability index shuts off. Like, you're no longer learning anything. Oh, because you know it.
Yeah, for sure. You're closed off. I think you see that in every industry, and everybody, like, there's just more often than not, a person's like, oh, I already know the answer to that, or I already know how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, well, let's wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Or let's ask the question and see what the answer is before we draw. This is what the conclusion is.
So in the construction industry, how does that like play out? Has there ever been an impossible situation that you've like somehow been able to reimagine and create when it was just completely impossible?
I hate to say like every day, like every day there's, and it's like, sometimes it's just like, you're dealing with an inspector and they say, you've got to build this median before I give you your final permit, or your final sign off.
Yeah.
And there's 100 reasons why that's not the case, and you've got to figure out a way to, go solve that problem. But that's something that's like, I'm dealing with that right now today at one of my projects.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know I'm going to overcome it. I just have to figure out the right way to overcome it.
So what's your process to that? Like, when you see something that's like impossible and there's a way to overcome it, but like you're just drawing a blank, like, do you have a process or a procedure that you kind of tap into?
Well, the first thing is easy. It's gather all the information. So like, good decisions, get made when you go, get all the information. The other day, I got somebody in my office came to me and they told me that, hey, you want to move out of this space and move into the space next door. And I listened to their version of why and what the situation was and everything like that. And my reaction was, well, I want to meet him because, I want to hear from, directly from the source what's going on so that we can try to like figure out a solution.
Right.
Because if I only get a little snippet of the information, then, I'm not going to come up with a good solution. And so I think that's like one major thing that people miss is just going out and like fact gathering and like actually taking the time to go like see it themselves. If you've got a business and you're just assuming that something's happening in that business, but you don't really know, like, I like to go and act like I'm a customer and, like experience it myself and go like, hey, what's going on here? Like how are the decisions I'm making in real life? Like, how do they actually get made? Because if I just simply guess, like I think what's going on with you,
right, and
make a decision, and I don't go and get all the information, it's very likely that I'll make a bad decision. So I think that's probably a big one, gather all the information. And then the next step is, once you do that, you kind of come up with a game plan. Okay, here's the different scenarios that are going to solve this problem. And then once you come up with those scenarios, then the next step is implementing it and getting it done. In between those processes, you hit the roadblocks.
Yeah.
Right? And when you hit those roadblocks, it's really, really important for you to be able to have this feeling like, okay, if I get a no here, I'm going to figure out how to get a yes over here. And you just keep going until eventually you get a yes. And sometimes the yes isn't even what, like what you were originally going for.
Yeah.
But then it changes. Like, for instance, us sitting here today. Like,
Right.
I would have never been sitting here
Right.
if we didn't talk yesterday.
Right.
And I think that we're going to end up doing some business together.
Yeah.
And that would have never happened.
Right.
So it's amazing how one thing leads to another thing.
Right. And so in your career, do you kind of like, I mean, I talk about this a lot on this podcast. It's like almost like a faith of knowing that, not like, like, oh, higher power help me, but like just knowing that like as you're doing this process, that like the next step will reveal itself in one way or another. And it might be in, like you said, something totally different where you didn't expect it to be. Have you like developed like a trust maybe in your process that like it always works out?
It's actually almost like a mistrust. because it's like that what I said earlier, like trust but verify.
Yeah.
It's what I like to do is like try to discover like where the failure is, or where like where did I miss something? Because sometimes there's a solution like right in front of your face and you don't see it.
Yeah.
And then somebody that's next to you, like if you have that ability to be open-minded, and they say, oh, well, what about this? And you're like, man, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me a million times where I feel like I know everything, and there's a solution right there, and then somebody says something, and I'm like, man, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so you have to have that willingness to be like, okay, that wasn't even one of my options.
Yeah.
But this sounds really good.
And sometimes it comes from children, right? Like my daughter, the way she says things, sometimes I'm like, that could work. So I'll always ask her, I'll be like, what do you think? And then she'll be like, well, and a lot of times it's like crazy, right? But sometimes I'm like, oh, not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, and and everybody's got a different perspective on things. Like,
Right.
Your daughter, my kids, they're little kids, and their world looks a lot differently than our world.
Right.
And so, yeah, sometimes it is good to listen to somebody that's got a completely different perspective.
Yeah. And so, dang, where was I going with that? So, anyways, okay, so are you working on any, like, crazy projects now that are, like, the theater's cool? Is there anything, like, is that the most kind of, like, iconic project you have going on right now?
Yeah, I would say that that's probably one of the most creative projects. I do have another project in downtown Las Vegas in the Arts District called the Mission Linen Building. And we just broke ground on it, and we're going to have the Evel Knievel Museum.
Oh, no way.
Do you know who Evel Knievel is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's funny, like sometimes I'll say that to somebody that's like in their 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, who's Evel Knievel?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Evel Knievel Museum was in Topeka, Kansas.
Oh, okay.
It's moving to Vegas, moving to the Arts District.
It makes sense. It should be in Vegas, yeah.
It should be in Vegas, yeah. This is where he jumped the fountains at Caesars.
Yeah.
And so that's a really cool project.
Nice.
And we just opened up another building at Las Vegas Boulevard in Carson.
Oh, you're telling me about that.
And it's got a parking garage, and it's got a broken yoke on the bottom floor, and a post office. So I just built.
Oh yeah. So that post office that's your development right
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh nice. Yeah, I've seen that kind of develop over time.
Yeah, it took a long time, but it's done. Post office is open. Broken Yoke is open. It's got
Nice.
2 floors of really cool creative office space. I've got a rooftop restaurant.
Nice.
And then I've got 3 tenants in the bottom floor of the garage.
Oh, awesome. So, I know you were saying that you kind of like are excited to maybe light it at the end of the tunnel to slow down. Do you believe like that you'll actually retire? Like actually stop?
Yeah, not retire. So retire is like, I think that's not like in the cards for me.
Yeah.
But when I say slow down, I mean like, I enjoy building a project. And when I say building, like actually being out on a tractor, like,
Yeah.
like truly like swinging hammers, like being in the construction process.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, today I spend most of my time behind a desk,
Yeah.
sending emails.
Oh, really?
And to me, like if in a perfect world, if I had less projects going on, I'd have more time to be down in the field where the actual construction is taking place.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. Your space was built, and I think maybe I got an opportunity to walk through here one time,
Yeah.
and my office is right next door.
Yeah.
And back in the day when I had a lot less projects going on and more time, like I would have come and visited your space 10 times, 15 times.
Yeah.
Because like I enjoy that process.
Yeah.
And so that's what it looks like, for me. So it's just doing, less projects, being more focused on them, and being able to spend more time doing the things that I like and less time doing the things that I hate.
So I have a question for you. It's kind of like a two-part question. So at any given point, like in today's atmosphere, like how many projects do you guys as an organization have going on? And then how did you develop kind of like the systems to be able to operate at that level? Because I think one of my biggest bottlenecks as like things are coming is developing systems quickly enough to like have it continue to keep going,
Yeah. I mean, it's like usually like how does that happen? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you're, just starting off, or even, you're like at where I'm at, every day I'm just like trial by fire, right? You're trying to make processes and systems and things like that. And, there's certain things like we're great at, but we also, every day we've got to get better at certain things. And so, do I have like an ironclad process of like, okay, this is how I put things together? No.
Yeah.
But it's usually, I follow the same rules. I try to get all the information I can get. I try to make good decisions. Implementation of processes can be hard, especially when you have people that work for you.
Yeah.
You may have a certain vision, and then, you try to put that vision out, and then somebody doesn't necessarily see it the same way or understand it. So I would say that's probably one of my most difficult challenges, is consistently, like in my mind, making that thing happen in the real world as the way that I see it in my mind. And so it just takes a lot of effort. And what I would say is that if there was one rule, because you asked me how many projects do I have going right now, I have way too many. and there's, with having too many, what happens is you get degraded, like meaning there's certain areas that you're maybe really good in and you're not as good in because you're just stretched thin on your time. And so like I would say that, when you have that choice to go, okay, one more project, one more thing, if you feel like you're getting to capacity, it's much better to be like the best and have less than do everything and be mediocre at it.
Yeah. Wow. That's super valuable advice. I've experienced it in my short time in business. Like, we get over leveraged and then we're not checking all the boxes and, things slip through the cracks and people become unhappy. And then that, you lose an account or something in that term. And so right now we're very like focused on, just doing the best job and then like trying to hire as we grow. Like instead of like over leveraging ourselves and just being like, oh, we could do that. It's like, okay, we can do that, but what's it going to take? We're going to need to hire this person and this person, and then like let's move into that and apply it. Which that even has been a challenge. Like it doesn't always work out. I had the guy that was running this place like quit on me yesterday, so now I'm running all the sessions. So it's a challenge, right? And I'm sure that like my problems compared to your problems are like minuscule, but like, a problem is a problem when you're trying to lead and develop an organization.
Well, and you're so dependent upon people. That's the thing is like, people to share your vision, execute the way that you would execute. And that's hard to do. Yeah. Because everybody's not just like you. If they were, then life would be easy.
And then they would probably have their own thing, right?
And they would probably have their own thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So you got to be able to, I don't know. What's your, do you have any like secret sauce in like trying to inspire and lead others and kind of keep them bought into the vision?
Yeah. I think that one of my big things is like, I really believe in trying to be nice and kind to everybody, which sounds like an easy, simple thing. Yeah. But to be honest, it's like something that, is sometimes lost, Yeah. It's like when you deliver good news or you deliver bad news, it's always good to like do it in person. Yeah. Or, at minimum, do it over the phone. Right. Today, the world is all about, like texting and emails. Yeah. And there's so much context that gets lost in that, because you can't like touch and feel and understand what somebody's like going through, whatever that is. So like for me, that's a big deal. I really try hard to like connect with somebody, get to know them, because you could talk to somebody for 6 months over a computer or
Right.
over text and never really get to know them.
Yeah.
But then meet with them in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, you know who they are, you know what they're all about.
Right.
You have more context about what their goals are.
Right.
And it's amazing how things just open up.
Yeah, and sometimes you humanize, like you forget there's like another person on the other end of that. It's just like messaging back and forth, and so that human touch is super important. And I imagine probably in your situation even more so, because like maybe things and problems and challenges are more delicate that need to be handled, like instead of just like via email and stuff.
For sure. And sometimes emails are good. Or text messages are good, but I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've been in like this thing where you're going back and forth 100 times.
Yeah.
And you just think to yourself, like, if I would have just like picked up the phone,
Yeah.
and had one phone call, I could have eliminated 20 back and forth emails.
Right. It's like 5-minute call.
and it's amazing how much time you spend. So becoming effective in the way that you communicate and that you distribute information
Yeah.
is super important. Like I'm constantly a prisoner of my emails and being behind on them.
Yeah.
And looking for ways to like get out from under it.
Yeah.
And so, from an efficiency standpoint, like that's one of the things that like right now I'm working on overtime is like, how do I have the most efficient office? How do we communicate effectively, still get the message across, but not spend our whole day just typing out emails?
Right. And so what do you think, like, you're like with your time, you've got probably tons of employees and stuff. What do you think is like the highest leverage action that, like, in a perfect world, like what would move the needle most for you if you were just doing that like all day, every day instead?
Yeah, it's funny. So I know what that is. And that is if I could turn my telephone off, not be glued in front of emails,
Yeah.
like have like a list of things that I've got to get done.
Yeah.
And actually like have uninterrupted work time. Like right now, I've got a bunch of appointments today.
Yeah.
And Friday is usually my day where I schedule nothing.
Yeah.
So that I could get work, like real work done.
Yeah.
Where I'm heading into the weekend and I'm feeling really good. And so that's one of the things that I've noticed. Like if I take a whole week off of scheduling appointments and telephone calls and all things like that, I get an unbelievable amount of stuff done. But it takes tremendous discipline to do that because everybody always is like, oh, let's just meet. Let's do this. Let's do that. And that goes back to the thing I said, like, oh, it's easier to meet.
Right.
But if you're always doing that
Right.
too, then there's a chance that you're not going to get anything done.
Right.
So it's really being, like strategic because, in some instances you've got to meet.
Right.
In some instances you got to have a phone call.
Right.
And so you got to figure out a way to balance all those things.
Yeah. And so when you're like saying like work, like what do you define as like work, like for you that's like out of just, because sometimes like I consider like the calls and all that stuff like part of work. Is that like separate, you would say, from like needle moving activities?
Well, it's like for me, again, like I can get an email about something that's going on, but if I go see it in real life or in person, like I get more context and I know, like, oh, this is what I need to do in order to make this work.
Right.
Like the challenge that I've got going on that I was telling you about with the median and getting past that. Like I know I've sent a gazillion emails over the last 5 days to try to resolve this. I know it's gonna take to ultimately resolve this. If I get in my car, go talk to the guy that's like kind of holding this up, and then if it doesn't get resolved with him, go to his boss down at the county who's the director of public works and go, hey, this is ridiculous, we need to resolve this, and I can resolve it. And so I know that that's the solution, but I've spent a lot of time going back and forth on emails and telephone calls so far, and I haven't been able to get a resolution.
So that's something you would do instead of taking those calls or these meetings and stuff.
Correct. So that's why I said it's just evaluating. Each little thing it's a different, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
So in some cases, meetings and emails and conference calls, they take away from your ability to work and get stuff done. And then in other cases, you've got to have a meeting like that because it can eliminate 500 emails going back and forth. So it's like there's different scenarios for different things.
Right.
And so that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, I know you're a busy guy. We're going on to like 40 minutes. And I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of your insights. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was your process on like solving problems, like gathering all the information, making the best decision, and then implementing it. That's like something I feel like I'm really going to take away from me. And I'm probably eternally in debt to you for that. So
I don't know about that, but
I'm super grateful that you were able to come by and
cool.
just have
Thanks
a
for inviting
conversation.
me. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Where can the people find you if you want people to find you?
I'm not really findable on purpose. I mean, we have social media. We have, Facebook, Instagram, and all those things, and probably like X and whatever else.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's like I already spend way too much time on my little screen or my big screen.
Yeah.
And so I don't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
You can call me.
Yeah.
There
If
you
you
go.
guys want a development, Google Dapper,
There you
and
go.
you'll be able to get it.
Yeah, or if you got a great business and you really think it needs a home, whether it's here or another one of the projects, you can give me a call, and if it's the right kind of business, maybe I've got the right space.
Let's go. You heard it from the man
Yeah.
himself. Appreciate you, Jay. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
thank you very much.